non-disclosure agreement they made me sign. The one that forced me to bury everything I saw inside that clinic. It is worth exactly $10 million. My lawyer's expensive suits, who didn't look me in the eye, called it the lifetime silence protocol. They told me that if I ever spoke a word of this, if I ever wrote it down, if I ever even dreamt about it too loudly, my life would be over. Not just my career, my life. If this video gets deleted within 24 hours, it doesn't just mean I violated a contract. It means my bank accounts are frozen. It means my passport is flagged. Or worse, it means someone is already knocking at my door right now. I stayed silent for years. I took their blood money. I bought a new identity. I ran away from the freezing white hell of Wyoming to a humid, forgotten beach town in Florida where nobody knows my name. I stopped watching TV. I smashed my radio. I just tried to forget. I tried to convince myself it was a nightmare. But last week, I made a mistake. I walked into a small cafe down the street, and there, on the wall, was a television. It was the news, breaking news, and I saw him, Kanye. He was giving an interview. The reporter was laughing at his jokes. The audience was clapping, cheering for him. The headline read, "The legend returns." Everyone was saying, "He's back." They said, "He's healed. He's calmer than before. He's finally found peace." I was holding a ceramic coffee cup. I squeezed it so hard that it shattered in my hand. Shards of porcelain cut into my palm. Scalding hot coffee poured over my bleeding skin, but I didn't feel a thing. I couldn't feel pain. Because I was staring into that man's eyes on the screen. High definition, 4K resolution, crystal clear. And I saw the truth. Behind those eyes, there was no one home. That was not Kanye West. That was not the man I saw in room number 4. The man I watched take his last desperate breath on that cold metal stretcher before I was forced to press the shutdown button. My name doesn't matter anymore. If you knew it, you would be in danger too. I was the night shift nurse at the Aurora Summit Rehabilitation Center. And I swear to you, I know the difference between a man losing his mind and a man having his mind erased and overwritten. This isn't a story about madness. This isn't celebrity gossip. This is a story about replacement. And if you can hear me, please cover your phone camera. Right now. Do it. Because if they can see me, they might be watching you too. Understory drone. Just a logo. 2 interlocking triangles. Sharp and black, with the words Vertex Solutions underneath. They knew everything about me. They had studied my medical history, specifically my work with combat veterans suffering from extreme PTSD and dissociation. They knew about my debt. They knew about my lonely life. I was the perfect candidate. Isolated, skilled, desperate. The message was brief. Highly sensitive mission. Total isolation required. High-profile clients. 1 chance. The salary offer attached to the file was 5 times what I made in a year. 5 times. It was enough to disappear forever. But there was a catch. A condition that should have made me run away. 0 contact with the outside world for 6 months. No phones. No internet. No family. No letters. Just a facility hidden deep in the snowy mountains of Wyoming. A place that doesn't exist on Google Maps. A ghost facility. I accepted. God help me. I accepted. A black SUV with tinted windows picked me up at 2 a.m. The driver didn't speak. We drove for hours into the wilderness, until the road turned to ice and the trees disappeared. Then, a helicopter was waiting. We flew over endless white nothingness. When I finally arrived, I knew immediately this wasn't a hospital. Yes, there were white walls. Yes, it smelled sterile. But that smell, it wasn't medicine. It wasn't bleach or alcohol. It smelled like ozone. You know that smell when the air gets electric right before a massive storm hits? Or the smell of hot melting plastic behind an old overheating TV set? The entire building smelled like that. It tasted metallic on my tongue. Security was insane. More than a prison. Retinal scans. Blood samples taken every morning. Voice frequency recording. They gave me a badge, a simple white card. It didn't have my name on it. It just had a barcode and a designation, Observer 4. I wasn't a nurse anymore. I was an observer. The manager who hired me was Miss Sterling. She was a woman with ice blue eyes who never seemed to blink. Her skin was too perfect, like wax. She walked me through the long, silent corridors of the facility. The lights hummed with a sound that made my teeth ache. She stopped in front of a heavy steel door and turned to me. Her voice was devoid of any warmth. "The guests here are not here for healing, Observer 4. Do not confuse this with therapy. They are here for calibration. Do not speak to them. Do not make eye contact. Do not touch them unless ordered. And never ask why the server room on the 3rd floor screams at night." She didn't smile. She didn't blink. She just walked away, her heels clicking on the floor like a ticking clock. The first 2 weeks were quiet. Unnervingly quiet. I saw a few people I recognized. a famous Hollywood producer who had disappeared for a month, a tech CEO who was rumored to be dying. They walked the halls like zombies, pale, empty. They accepted the vitamin drips I gave them without a word. But on the Tuesday of the third week, everything changed. The lights on the helipad turned on, cutting through the blizzard outside. It was exactly 3:33 a.m., and he arrived. I watched from the window of the medical bay. The wind was howling, whipping the snow into a frenzy. When he stepped out of the helicopter, I didn't recognize him at first, because they had taken his identity away. His face was covered. No, not with one of those fashion masks he sells. This was a black, heavy, industrial fabric sack tied over his head, hooded, like a prisoner of war, and his hands weren't handcuffed. They were encased in strange, bulky metallic gloves. The gloves had wires running up his sleeves. He couldn't move his fingers. He couldn't make a fist. 2 guards were flanking him. But these weren't your typical celebrity bodyguards. They weren't big, muscular guys. They wore gray, tailored suits that didn't wrinkle. No earpieces. No weapons visible. Just silence. When they laid him on the stretcher, I expected a fight. I expected the Kanye West the world knows, the loud, defiant, uncontrollable force of nature. I expected him to scream. I expected him to rap. I expected him to fight back, but he didn't move. He was like a machine that had been unplugged, a toy with no batteries. We wheeled him into room number 4, the isolation unit. The sound of the stretcher wheels echoing in the corridor sounded like bones breaking. Clack, 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 clack. Miss Sterling was waiting at the door. She grabbed my arm. Her grip was surprisingly strong, like a vice. Her voice dropped to a whisper, sharp and dangerous. Observer 4. Listen closely. Tonight is your watch. Procedure 7B is in effect. You are to monitor the vitals on the screen. That is all. Whatever you see on the projection, whatever you hear in the audio feed, whatever he says, do not enter that room. Only intervene if the pulse stops. Do you understand? If you open that door, you breach the protocol. What is Procedure 7B? I asked, my voice shaking. It is none of your business, she said. Just watch the screen. When they took the sack off his head, I felt a cold hand squeeze my heart. The arrogant, confident, sometimes angry Kanye you see on TV, he was gone. His eyes, God, his eyes, they were open, wide open, but he wasn't looking at anything. His pupils were so dilated that the brown iris was almost invisible. Just 2 infinite, black wells staring into the abyss. His facial muscles were completely slack. It looked like his face was melting downwards, detached from the skull beneath. They didn't tie him to the bed. They didn't need to. He was paralyzed. He was just staring at the ceiling. But the ceiling wasn't a ceiling. It was a massive, curved LED screen. And at the head of the bed, a machine full of complex, thick black cables was humming. The cables didn't go into his arm. They went into the pillow, wrapping around his head like a nest of snakes. When they turned the machine on, the air in the room instantly changed. The ozone smell became suffocating. I tasted copper and battery acid in my mouth. My tooth fillings started to vibrate and ache. The images projected on the ceiling. I watched them on my monitor in the safety of the observation booth. They weren't normal. Fast cuts, strobe lights, geometric shapes spinning impossibly fast, spirals, triangles, eyes. But in between the shapes, for a split second, there were photos. I slowed the footage down. My stomach turned over. They were his own photos, but twisted, deformed by AI. Kanye on stage, with a red X painted over his mouth. Kanye holding his children, but their faces were blurred out, erased. Kanye crying, with the word weakness flashing in bold red text. Kanye laughing, with the word error flashing over his eyes. And then, the sound. I put on my headphones to listen to the room feed. I expected music. I expected silence. Instead, I heard white noise. Static. Sure. But underneath the static, a voice was whispering. It was a voice that sounded like 100 people speaking at once, layered over and over, creating a wall of sound. Whispering voice. You are not a god. You are a component. You are not a genius. You are a vessel. We gave you the voice. We take the voice. The old code is corrupted. Sleep. Forget. Delete. Obey. 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 I tore the headphones off. My hands were shaking. This wasn't rehab. This wasn't therapy. This was a factory reset. Part 3. The glitch and the horror. On the 4th night, the silence broke. It was around 3 a.m. again, the witching hour. The facility was dead silent, except for the hum of the servers. I was staring at the monitor, half asleep. Suddenly, the red alarm light began to flash silently. The heart rate monitor spiked. 90, 120, 160, 180. He was crashing. Tachycardia. Massive heart failure imminent. I grabbed the intercom. Miss Sterling, we have a code red in room 4. No answer. Just static. Security. Medical emergency. Nothing. The hallways were empty. It was like I was the only person left on Earth. I looked at the screen. Kanye was thrashing on the bed. His body was arching, convulsing violently. Foam was bubbling at the corners of his mouth. I remembered Miss Sterling's order. Do not enter. But I couldn't let a man die. I couldn't watch him die on a screen like a TV show. I was a nurse. I had taken an oath to save lives. I grabbed my keycard. I swiped it. The light turned green. I burst into room 4. The cold hit me like a physical punch. It was freezing inside. My breath steamed in the air. The smell of ozone was so strong it burned my nostrils. Kanye was shaking on the bed, vibrating like a tuning fork. "Mr. West, can you hear me?" I shouted, rushing to his side. I leaned in to put the oxygen mask on him, and in that moment, everything stopped. He grabbed my wrist, his hand. It was ice cold, unnaturally cold. He squeezed so hard I felt my radius bone crack. He stopped convulsing. He froze, and he locked eyes with me. Those empty, black, dilated eyes were gone. Instead, I saw something else. I saw clarity. I saw terror. Bloodshot, raw, human terror. The kind of fear an animal feels when it knows the butcher is coming. He pulled me close, dragging my face inches from his. He whispered, but his voice, oh God, his voice. It wasn't his voice. It sounded like he had swallowed broken glass. It sounded like a radio trying to find a signal between stations. They took it out. They took it out of my head. I see the code. The numbers are falling. Stop the music. Stop the music. Calm down, Mr. West. I'm trying to help you, I cried, trying to free my wrist. He shook his head violently, saliva flying from his mouth. Tears, real tears, started streaming down his face, mixing with the foam. "No, you don't understand," he gasped, his eyes darting around the room, looking for invisible enemies. "I'm not Kanye anymore, the real one. They took him downstairs, to the basement. I'm just the backup. I'm the copy. I'm the shell. Please, don't shut me down. I don't want to die." I froze. My blood ran cold. What was he talking about? Was he hallucinating from the drugs? Was this a psychotic break? "You're in a hospital," I said, trying to sound soothing. "You're safe. Look," he screamed. "Look." He tore at his shirt. The buttons popped off, bouncing on the floor. His collar slipped open, and I saw it. Right below his collarbone, underneath the skin, there was something. It wasn't a passmaker. It wasn't a scar. It was a small rectangular bump, perfect in its geometry. Hard edges, and under that bump, beneath the translucent human skin, a faint, blue LED light was pulsing. Pulse, fade, pulse, fade. It wasn't biological. It wasn't a vein. It was hardware, embedded in his flesh. I reached out with a trembling hand to touch it. The skin over it was thin, like paper. Just as my finger brushed against it, Kanye, or the person on that stretcher, started shaking again. His eyes rolled back into his head, showing only the whites. And out of his mouth came a sentence that haunts my nightmares. Not a whisper this time, not a scream, but a flat, monotone, robotic tone. A synthesized voice. System, error, memory, corrupted, reboot, required. Please, wait. That wasn't a human voice. That was Siri. That was Alexa. That was a GPS. I stumbled back in horror, knocking over a tray of instruments. The metal crash echoed in the silent room. My back hit the wall. "What are you?" I whispered. Suddenly, the door flew open with a hydraulic hiss. Miss Sterling walked in. She was flanked by those two gray-suited men. She looked at the chaotic scene. She looked at me, huddled against the wall. She looked at the man on the bed. There was no surprise on her face, no anger, just cold, administrative disappointment, like I had spilled coffee on a rug. "I told you not to enter Observer 4, she said calmly. Her voice was smooth, terrifyingly steady. "You interrupted the data transfer. You have compromised the integrity of the asset." She signaled the men with a slight nod. One of them approached the bed. He carried a sleek black metal case. He opened it. Inside, on black velvet, lay a long, thin silver tool. It looked like a needle, but thicker, like a probe. He didn't hesitate. He grabbed Kanye's head. He pressed the tool behind Kanye's ear, right at the hairline, where the skull meets the neck. I wanted to scream stop, but my voice was stuck in my throat. I heard a distinct wet click, metal piercing skin and bone, then a high-pitched electronic whine, like a camera flash charging up. Repeating, and the man on the stretcher instantly went limp. The tension left his body in a second, just like a puppet with its strings cut. His jaw dropped open. His eyes stared blankly. The blue light under his skin flickered once, and went dark. Sterling turned to me slowly. "Go to your room," she said. "Log what you saw tonight as a hallucination caused by high-altitude fatigue and stress. Do not speak of this. We will discuss the terms of your termination in the morning." Part 4. The Escape and the Replacement. I knew termination didn't mean firing me. I knew it meant I wouldn't leave that mountain alive. I didn't go to my room. I waited until they turned the corner. I took off my shoes so I wouldn't make noise. I ran to the emergency stairwell. My socks were wet with sweat and fear. I ran down 5 flights of stairs, my heart pounding so loud I thought it would set off the alarms. I reached the staff parking lot. It was freezing, a blizzard raging outside. I couldn't find my car keys. I panicked, digging through my pockets, sobbing quietly. "Please, please, please." I found them. I got into my car. The engine struggled to start in the cold. Crank, crank, come on, I screamed. Roar. It started. I drove. I drove blindly through the whiteout. I almost went off the cliff twice. I didn't stop for hours. I didn't look in the rearview mirror until I hit the state line. When I finally looked back, the mountain was dark. The facility was just a shadow against the night sky. The next day, I checked my bank account. $10 million.
A wire transfer from a shell company in the Cayman Islands, and a contract arrived in my encrypted email. Sign this, or we release your location. I signed it. I had to. I wanted to live. But 2 weeks later, I was in a motel room, shaking, hiding. The TV was on. Breaking news. Kanye West throws a surprise listening party for his new album. I watched the footage, sitting on the edge of the bed. He was jumping on stage, screaming, wearing that mask. The crowd was going wild. The old Kanye is back, they shouted. He's a genius. But I stood up. I walked to the TV. I zoomed in. I looked at the hand holding the microphone. I have a photographic memory. That night in the clinic, I noticed a detail. The man in the clinic, on his right hand, on the ring finger, he had a small brown mole, a birthmark. The man on TV, his hands were smooth, flawless, no mole. And I looked at his neck. He was jumping around under hot stage lights for an hour. He wasn't sweating, not a single drop of sweat. His skin was matte, perfect, artificial. That night in the clinic, the entity with the blue light pulsing under his skin, the one who said I am just the backup. He is walking the earth right now. He is raising children. He is influencing culture. Millions of people are listening to him. They are decoding his lyrics, looking for meaning. But nobody hears the hidden frequencies in those songs. Nobody notices those split-second freezes in his eyes during interviews, the microsecond delays when the system processes a difficult question.
I escaped the facility, but I don't think I escaped them. I'm never truly alone anymore. Sometimes at night, in my house in Florida, I wake up at 3:33 a.m. I hear that sound, that high-pitched whine. I smell the ozone filling my bedroom, and my phone turns on by itself. It sits on the nightstand, the screen glowing white. Nothing on it, just static. And through the static, a whisper comes through the speaker. Observer 4. Calibration incomplete. Return to us. The new version is ready. If you are watching this, here is my warning. Look closely at their eyes. Not just Kanye, all of them. The ones who disappear and come back changed. When their stare goes blank, when their smile hangs for a second too long, or when they suddenly change character on live TV. Don't laugh. Don't make memes. Don't say they're crazy. Maybe, just maybe, they are buffering. Maybe they are installing a new update. And remember, the darkness behind the screen is watching you much more closely than you are watching it.